Hi there guys, and welcome to my thoughts on The Simpsons Movie. So, since I'm currently going through every season of the show and reviewing it, it was kind of inevitable I was going to have to talk about The Simpsons Movie at some point. And I felt like, since I've just finished the classic era of the show, now might be a good time to jump ahead and actually take a look at the movie. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into my analysis here. I'm just going to kind of give my overview on what I think of the movie and the key parts of it. My overall opinion of this movie is that it is good, but not great. I actually think that the core plot that they came up with was good. It used a pre-existing problem of pollution already shown in the series, so they did well to make it fit the show in that regard. The movie also starts well by introducing all of the characters straight away and setting up Grandpa with the foreshadow. There were many good jokes and moments throughout the movie, but none that I would really call amazingly funny. The movie does at least know what makes the show tick. The typical scenario of Springfield forming an angry mob, that part of the movie was cool, and it even leads to the symbolic moment of the destroyed Simpsons house. My favourite gags of the movie included Homer sticking his fingers up as he slowly sunk through the sand. I also like the whole superglue versus jetpack farce, and the fact that Homer chose the superglue and ended up having to climb up the dome that way. Ross Cargill was the man for the quotes here though. He really was a great villain and had memorable ones throughout. The best of them all has to be, have you ever tried to go mad without power? It's boring and no one listens to you. That's definitely one that falls into the it's funny because it's true category. The movie did drag a bit through the middle though in my opinion. This was most evident during the Alaska section. Unfortunately, it took up a bit too much time, and the only good joke that came from it was the clap for Alaska that Homer says to Lisa after he thinks that Bart is applauding Alaska. Homer, of course, does have his epiphany in the end and does come around to saving the day. The climax is as you would expect, with everything working out in some kind of grand sequence. There was some nice animation in there though, like most of the film to be fair, and I guess the motorcycle callback was pretty clever. I am of the opinion though that the final showdown with Russ Cargill felt a bit rushed, and if anything it took away from the ending for me. It was nice to see Maggie drop the rock on him, I guess, to give her something meaningful to do, but it still kind of was a bit disappointing. In terms of the characterization on show here, sadly the side characters were reduced to cameos and cutaway appearances. This is understandable in a way, of course, given the sheer size of the cast, but it's still a slight disappointment to hardcore fans of the show. I do at least appreciate some of the fan service references thrown in with obscure characters though. In that mob scene alone you could literally just pick up dozens of obscure characters that appear in it. But ultimately they were never going to fit in all of the cast in this 90 minutes, so they had to kind of pick and choose their moments well. In terms of the main family, Bart had a decent movie I think. It was nice to see him bond with Ned a bit, and of course he does help Homer save the day in the end. Just those scenes with Ned and Bart on a lake are great, and it's nice to see someone be genuinely nice to him for a change. Marge was her normal self, and it was obvious that her relationship with Homer would be the main thing of the whole story. That scene where she tapes over their wedding day is great, and probably the best in the whole movie from a purely story perspective. You could tell that they had Julie Carvener record that scene over and over again until they got it just how they wanted it. She really did nail that scene, and the use of Close to You is a nice moment, given that that is Homer and Marge's song from the show. Out of the main family, it was Lisa that mainly took a back seat in the movie. Other than their scenes with Colin, who I don't find very interesting by the way, she has nothing really to do. It is disappointing, but at the end of the day, when you try to condense 18 years of a TV show into a 1.5 hour movie, these kind of things will happen and sacrifices unfortunately have to be made. I think this kind of speaks to what a difficult challenge the writers and everyone else involved actually had when trying to make this movie. It is almost impossible to appeal perfectly to both the hardcore fan base and the average moviegoer who is not really into The Simpsons, and that is ultimately what they tried to do. If nothing else, I do appreciate the effort that went into the production of the movie. They brought back all of the old writers from the show and spared no expense with the animation and things like that. That is why, although I do have some problems with this movie, I can still accept it for what it is. After all, this movie came out after season 18, by which point the show was a shadow of its former self. Given that fact, it was unreasonable to expect that this would be as good as the classic era or golden era of the show, and indeed it wasn't that good. I still say that this movie was better than what the TV show was producing at the time, and it's probably also better than anything produced since if I'm being honest. To round off my overall thoughts here, people will of course have their strong opinions about this movie one way or the other, given that it's based on such a popular show. And even though it doesn't quite go down as a pure animated masterpiece, I still feel that the movie is pretty fun to watch and does manage to stand by itself as something that does the show justice. And in the end, isn't that the only thing that matters really? The answer, of course, according to Leonard Nimoy, is no.